So, hello everyone. Recently, happening things. So, today we have a group three to watch the presentation about phonological company. Phonology. So, this group is built with planning presentation with the trial number 22, Designer Fiddle 70, Media Halaman 26, Tidak Ilmawa 49, Daunnya Tiap Tamu 2012, and God Nora 59. So that's all. Without any further ado, let's go jump and enjoy. First, economy. So economy and sound used in speech can be called tone or phonetic unit or segment. So let's talk about others. A is tone. Tone is a unit of sound that can be mentally distinct from other sounds in what is actually the continuous flow sound that makes us think. A phone can be described on the basis of its particularity, and acoustic characteristics, and phone that can be said to be appeal, a soft and content, and it's oral and auditory. And then you get address. It is phoneme. The phoneme can be defined as a specific speech and language that contains the signal differs in meaning when contrasted with another phoneme. In reality, in spoken language, a phoneme is a class of sounds or tones that speakers and listeners perceive as being one sound. The phonemes have no meaning in themselves, yet words that are the sum exact of the different one have meaning, and phoneme is the major unit of phonology. That's thanks to my partner.
And the next is phonetics and phonemics. Phonetics is aimed to help organize information on sound. Linguists attempt to describe all the speech sounds of a previously unstudied language. A phonetic analysis of a heterophore unstudied language is an outside view, sometimes called an ethic view or approach. Ethic refers to a study done by a cultural outsider using categories and concepts that might not have meaning to the people being studied. Phonemics is aimed to determine what categories of the sound are significant to native speakers. The linguist is now taking an insight or emic approach and attempting to derive the speaker's linguistic competence. Emic refers to categories and concepts that have meaning to the people being studied. An emic study attempts to discover what things have meaning to the people being studied. For simple, phonemes are what we hear, and phonetics is what we say. Minimal pairs and sets. Minimal pairs is made up of two forms, words, phrases, sentences that differ in meaning, contain the same number of sound segments, and display only one phonetic difference, which appears at the same place in the form. And the example is minimal pair for sit and sit, minimal pair consonant sing and think, minimal pair initial consonant came and game, minimal pair final consonant think and think. Minimal set. Minimal set is made up of more than two forms, words, phrases, or sentences that differ in meaning, contain the same number of sound segments, and display only one phonetic difference, which occurs at the same place in the forms. The example is cat, hat, rat, bat, and fat.
Next is free variation. Free variation is the condition in which phonetically different sounds may occur in the same environment without changing meaning. Example, as you can see here, the example of the free variation, the first one is tomato. Some people might pronounce it as tomato, and some might pronounce it as tomato. The next example is root. You can pronounce it as root, are just roots. The next example is also happen in the word data. You can pronounce it as data or data. They all have the same meaning, but with different pronunciation. It can be happens because of the different dialect or accent. Next is naming the poem. Naming the poem can be based on a sound noted with the same symbol. The example is the P sounds. As you can see here, it is also explained that of the three P sounds listed in the preceding sentence, the regular P is more frequent than either aspirated P or unreleased P. Then, naming the poem also can be based on sounds, but the phonetic alphabet are written with different letters. The example is the T sounds that can be pronounced as T and G in certain situations. But the T occurs at the end of the word, while the D only occurs when it's preceding a vowel.
And the next is broad and narrow transcription. In the first stage of linguistic study done in the field, the linguist writes down each utterance in as much phonetic details as can be perceived. At this stage, as many symbols, such as diacritics and special letters, will be used as needed to transcribe the linguist's perception of the language. The verse is broad transcription, or phonemic transcription. Represent the idealized sounds called phonemes, which are actually classes of sounds, the class being made up by allophones. Rather than basically real speech sounds, broad transcription does not include non-distinctive feature. The second one is narrow transcription or phonetic transcription. Represent the actual sound that a person utters in as much details as possible, include the distinctive and non-distinctive features. And let's see the examples. For example, we have the word leaf and live both have the same broad transcription but a very narrow transcription. And we can see the broad transcription, we can see it's same, and for the narrow transcription, we can see that it's different. And the next is comparative example, Russian in English. Next, this comparison was meant to help us in understanding phonetic and phonemic aspects. Some differences of pronunciation in words of Russian will make different meaning. And while in English, we just assume that although the pronunciation is different, the meaning is same. And the example is various T sounds function in two languages. Between T, and P. In English, the word bread will have the same meaning although we pronounce it with that three different T. But in Russian, it will be different. Let's take the word mat. Mat with dental T has the meaning of floor mat. Meanwhile, mat with palatal T has the meaning of mother. Next.
Distinctive feature analysis. A distinctive feature can be thought of as a basic building block of the phoneme or more, specifically any trait that distinguishes one phoneme from another. For instance, in English, P can be phonemically distinguished from B by the single feature called voicing. B is voice and P is not. Distinctive feature included voice or voicing. Voicing is in the addition of a feature to a consonant and therefore a complication. Number 2 is sonoron. Frictionless continuance including vowels, glides, liquids, and nasals, which has been presented last week. The next one is the manner of articulations, nasal, lateral, and continuant. Some distinctive features are based on the place of articulations, such as dense versus lax, and reduce exceptionally brief durations. And then, other place of articulation features are based on what the lips are doing. The feature called round refers to when the lips are made to protrude. Other sounds are dependent on what part of the tongue is involved. Sound in which the tongue tip or blade is raised in the front part of the mouth are called coronal. If the body of the tongue is above the center of the location of the mouth, they call high. Sound produced with the tongue body lower than the center positioned in the mouth are called low. And the last but not least is pitch sound produced with the tongue body behind the hard palate are called a back sound.
Next.
The next one, the feature matrix. In the previous distinctive features, it's mentioned in the preceding section that the linguist might indicate each feature with a plus or a minus. This is called a binary system of classification. A binary system is a classification system in which a feature is either present or absent. Voice sound examples are B, D, G, J, L, M, N, R, Z, C, as in the word then, V, W, Y, and Z. For example, exchange, clubs, phones, listened, and organized. And the voiceless sound examples are T, F, K, P, S, T, and T, as in think. For example, is watched, codes, watch, books, and sits. A feature matrix lists sound segments or other phenomena along the horizontal axis and features on the vertical axis. The next one is natural classes. Because the P, T, K, B, D, and G all share the following traits, plus consonantal, minus sonorant, minus continuant, minus strident, minus nasal, so they form a natural class called oral stops. A natural class is a subset of the total set of phonemes that shares a small number of phonetic or distinctive features, which distinguish the class from other natural classes. Natural classes play a significant role in phonological regularities or rules. And the last one is combining phonemes. Since it's impossible for every speaker to write down all of the rules of their language, then it became the phonologist's attempts to make as many rules of the sound system of language as explicit as it possible. The area of phonology that studies with sound combination is called phonotactics. Phonotactics is an area of phonology that studies the combination of phonemes that are allowed or conversely restricted in the formation of syllables, consonant cluster, and sequence of vowels.
Okay, everyone, I think that's all enough on this video. Thank you for your time to watch. See you.